My wife and lover have become the laughing stock of the entire town. Anniversaries come and go, but this one was worth celebrating. It was the 1-year anniversary of the day I found out my marriage was over. I know what you are thinking. Who celebrates something like that? Well, I don't so much celebrate the pain as I pause to recognize that I have survived it and come out the other side stronger. A year ago today, I was sitting in my office thinking, I didn't sign up for this, did I? I remember the vow, for better and for worse, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. Death was starting to feel like my way out. That was my exit strategy. You see, that day I found out that my beloved and loving wife of 6 years, my best friend, the woman who had been everything to me, had turned out to be a cheater. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that the signs were there. She stayed out late, showered as soon as she got home, was always too tired for sex, and snapped at me over every little thing. No, none of that happened. I was just an ignorant asshole. So how did I know? It was Wednesday. It was close to lunchtime. I was on my way back to the office after an unscheduled visit to a client, and I decided to grab a fish fry sandwich at a store I knew. They call it The Whale, and it's fresh fried fish with tartar sauce, lettuce, and tomato on a bun. It's like fish and chips on a bun. You know how it is when things are going well. Everything is falling into place. The customers are happy, and you're happily thinking about the good lunch that awaits you in just a few minutes. That was me. I was fat and dumb and happy, and that's when it happened. I was stopped at a stoplight when I saw my beloved wife, who was driving in the opposite direction, turn right into the parking lot of the local no-tell motel. I thought, why? I turned right into the gas station parking lot, took a seat, and watched as she got out of the car and headed straight for one of the rooms. She knocked, the door opened, and she walked in like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Why? You're probably thinking I ran across the street and started banging on the door. Then I broke the door down and beat him with my bare hands. No. Now you think I slipped across the street and made my way into the room where I found the curtains slightly parted. I peeked between the curtains and saw everything I needed to know. No, it wasn't. I needed to know, but I didn't need her to know that I knew. I just found a place where I could sit quietly in my car and watch that door. An hour after arriving, she left. 5 minutes later, a man in an expensive suit came out after her, got into his Lexus, and drove away. Typical. I always thought a Lexus was overpriced for someone showing off. I was useless that day. I wasn't even trying to work. I just sat in my office and researched divorce information on the internet. It turned out to be as bad as I had heard. Whether I chose no fault or adultery, the outcome was the same. Damn her to hell. They had to pay. Then I realized I didn't even know his name. How can I make him pay if I don't know who he is? That night, fate intervened. I hadn't said 2 words to her all night, and she was asking me what was wrong. What did she think was wrong? Did she feel guilty? Was she afraid I knew something? Or was her thinking so disjointed and her behavior so withdrawn that she couldn't connect my attitude and her actions? I was watching the evening news, and there was a local story about a bank being robbed during the lunch hour. There was footage of the robbers, and the woman looked a lot like my wife. She was wearing a COVID mask, but her hair and eyes and height and build made her a good twin of the woman I married. Of course, I knew it wasn't her because she'd been in that motel room and put down that asshole with the Lexus, but I could play dumb with the best of them. Maybe I'm not even playing. The next morning, I called the police department and asked about the robbery. I was told they were working on multiple leads, which in police parlance means, we got nothing. So I so innocently told them that the woman looked a lot like the woman who lives on the next street over from me and gave her name. I also told them that she had recently bought a new car, which was a half-truth because I bought it, and I happened to know that she wasn't home when the robbery happened. The latter was undoubtedly true. I figured they'd knock on the door, have an awkward conversation with this cheater, and at least I'd get a good laugh out of it, which would help me get through the next few weeks while I filed for divorce. Oh no, it went much better than that. When the cops saw that she really looked a lot like a robber and couldn't explain where she was at the time of the robbery, they took her down to the station for what they euphemistically called an interrogation, where she was forced to confess where she was and who she was with. It wasn't hard for anyone who heard her to guess what she had been up to. Incidentally, that's how I eventually found out Mudok's name. They were holding her while they checked her alibi. That's a simplistic way of saying they put her in a cell and went to the asshole's house to look for him. When they didn't find him, his wife gave them his work address. The husband's interest in her husband did not escape his wife's attention. When he tried to deny the affair, they went to the motel and pulled the records. His electronic signature didn't help him believe the police, but it provided them both with an alibi. It turned out that lying to the police was indeed a crime, so they went back to his house that evening to file a misdemeanor charge. I secretly suspect they waited until he was home to arrest him in front of his wife. It didn't result in a big fine or jail time for the asshole, but it did get him a divorce. The story was too juicy to keep, and the case of the bandit's adultery became a running joke at the station, which was soon retold to the spouses. The couple told their friends, and their friends told their friends, and pretty soon my wife and the asshole became the laughingstock of the whole town. Even the judge hearing my divorce petition laughed when he realized who she was. In the end, the divorce was final. She had done everything expected of her and said all the usual cliches, but the trust had been broken, and it would not be restored in this life. She heard whispers and stifled chuckles behind her back wherever she went, and soon left town, not far behind her lover. I have no idea where she is now or if they're together, and I don't care anymore. I'm moving forward. Looking back, I sometimes wonder if it was worth the effort. I knew she was cheating on me and I was ready to divorce her over it. But I wanted to make her look like a cheater who had to admit to cheating to avoid arrest for armed robbery. I imagined her having to confess, "Sure, I'm a liar and a cheat, but I'm not a thief." It was less satisfying than I had hoped, but I have to admit that I would do it again if faced with the same situation. Eventually, 2 policemen paid me a visit. There was nothing they could do about anonymity anymore, so they knew full well that I was the one who had called them to report my wife. Officially, they weren't thrilled. Unofficially, I offered to buy each of them a beer, and we decided to get even. Apparently, one of them was divorced and the other was about to get divorced, and they admired my creativity. "Just don't do it again," was all they said to me. I wasn't sure if they meant that my wife had become a bank robber or that I had married her the first time. But either way, I agreed to both. And here I am, a year later. I've gotten rid of the deception that tormented me and I'm rebuilding my life. I had a few insignificant friends who were actually friends of my wife who knew of her betrayal, so I had no trouble cutting them out of my life. I then doubled the number of good friends who supported me. I didn't date until the divorce was final. That time I spent dealing with my emotions. Then about a month ago, I met a delightful woman my age. She too is divorced from a cheating husband. We have a lot in common. She too is building her life anew, and she too has made it her life's work to find the best bourbon produced on earth. We consider it our sacred mission, and we take it very seriously. Maybe we'll succeed, maybe we won't. We're in no hurry. For now, I am enjoying every minute I have with her, and today she will help me celebrate my divorce. Wish me luck. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.